Okay.
Welcome everybody to part 3 of our exciting series, The Tale of a Hasidic Tale. Let's just recap what we did in our previous 2 installments. In part 1, we discussed possibly the most famous Hasidic story of all time. The Hasidic story that you all know. The boy who comes into the Beit Midrash and expresses himself on Yom Kippur in the Beis Medrash of the Baal Shem Tov by blowing his flute. And in the first installment, we discussed the antinomian power of this version, the original version, the earliest printed version, at least as printed in 1896, and how that version demonstrates a clash between law and spirit, and the final words of the Baal Shem Tov ring in our ears from that earliest version, Rachmano Liba Boy, the merciful one desires the heart. And the thrust of that version suggests to us that the spirit is more important than the law. We then discussed how people were uncomfortable with that story. It was a dangerous story. We already heard from Reuven Werber how troubled he was when we presented that antinomian story and all his misnagdic feelings. I know that's a bit of a contradiction. All his misnagdic emotions welled up inside of him. As he said, how could it be? And we discussed how other people retell the story by removing the antinomian sting. And instead of the flute, we have a boy whistling or reciting, calling out the letters. Then in part 2 of this series, we had a look together at versions that retain the flute but still remove the antinomianism. We saw Maya Levine's 1932 version, and then we focused on Agnon's 1938 rendition of this story. And we saw how Agnon places the story at the liminal moments, really after Yom Kippur, making it not an act against halacha, but rather an interpretation or a reading or an explanation of the shofar blast. When we no longer have any words to say, when we're finished with all the prayers, the only thing left is the breath, our neshama, that comes from the depth of our souls. And that's the last moment of Yom Kippur, the last prayer, if you will, that we offer. And that was, I suggested, Agnon's exquisite reading without changing the story, just by moving its location slightly. I haven't said anything new. We've just recapped what we did in our first 2 sessions. And today we are going to have a look at another version that is dated to the same time as Agnon's version. We're going to have a look at the version that is retold within Lubavitch circles. Now, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, who passed away in the year 1950 and is commonly known by the abbreviation Rayatz. So we will use that term Rayatz instead of saying the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson. The Rayatz. The Rayatz was a fantastic storyteller. Fantastic in both senses of the term. Fantastic has an element of fantasy in it. And Rayatz was a great storyteller, and he used stories as a means to fashion the narrative of Lubavitch Hasidim and to an extent of Hasidus generally. A scholar in England, Professor Ada Rappaport Albert, described Rayatz's work as hagiography with footnotes. Hagiography with footnotes. It's a great term. Hagiography describes the life of saints, the life of holy people, but it's got footnotes. And what are those footnotes? The footnotes refer to other places that the story's mentioned, or the footnotes refer to an oral source that can't really be checked. So it gives a veneer, a guise of historicity, even though the historical roots are very shallow. Now, in 1938, the winter of 1938, Rayatz responded to a question that he was asked regarding the essence of Hasidus. Now, this question was later published, the response was later published in the collected letters of the Rayatz. And now I'm going to show you what that might look like. I'll just share the screen with you. This is four of his collected letters. And in this volume, that response is recorded. Even though we must say that as far as Rayatz's letters, this particular letter is qualitatively different than any of the other letters. It's missing all the paratext. It doesn't tell us who was the person who asked the question. It doesn't tell us when the letter was exactly written. It doesn't tell us where the letter was written, and it's missing the salutations at the beginning of the letter and at the end of the letter, which is standard for all of Rayatz's letters except for this one. So I'm a bit doubtful as to whether this was really a question that Rayatz was asked formally and that he responded to. Having said that, sometime around 1938, he writes this response, which turns out to be a small treatise on the essence of Hasidus. 1940, Rayatz arrives in America, and at some time he gives this treatise to his son-in-law. His son-in-law, the current Lubavitcher Rebbe of blessed memory, complex, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, and who will go on to be the successor of his father-in-law. But in late 1945, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, the Ramash, publishes this treatise under the title Kuntras Torat HaChasidut, a pamphlet of the Torah of Hasidus. What you can see in front of you on your screen is a later publication, because after it was first published in late 1945, it was reissued numerous times. And the truth is, in 1959, it was also translated into English. So this is a very accessible treatise. And the story, our story, appears in this treatise. Before we get to the story, let's read the beginning of the treatise, which is the beginning of on your source sheet. Please take out your source sheets. You should also be able to see it on your screen. And let us read the opening of this work. Are there any questions to this point or comments?
Rabbi Cooper, are all of the editions identical?
I can't see who's asking. Reuven.
Are all of the
yes?
Yeah, all of the editions.
Yes. They are identical. The ones I've showed you are identical. There are the story which is embedded in this treatise has been lifted and put in other places in other Chabad or Chabad affiliated works, and sometimes there's some orthographic changes, but the story is basically the same story. But let's begin, before we get to the story, with the treatise, because it's quite interesting to ask ourselves the very question. And Rayatz offers an answer. In response to your question, regarding the Hasidic wisdom, its essence, its matter, its impact on a person, on how a person acquires lofty spiritual levels. Work of the heart, Tefillah, regarding davening, Mehusa, what's the essence of davening? V'toichen pu'ulasa, and how does it work? Hamivia chochmas Torah Hasidus, that the wisdom of Hasidic teaching brings. Me'akoyach haruchani, b'foil hachaim, from the spiritual potential into actual life. Ve'echreach inyonom, b'shleimus avodas Hashem yisparach, tudas kol chai b'Yisrael, and why it's so important, why Hasidus is so important to the work of a person and the identity of a living Jewish person. Hineni bazeh lahashivai davar davur al oifanoi. I'd like to respond and explain to give a précis. What is Hasidus? Says the Rayatz, I am going to explain in the following sections. And he begins with the following. And even though this isn't the story, I think that this helps frame the story, at least in Rayatz's eyes, and that's why we're going to read it. I also think that objectively it's an interesting rendition or presentation of what Hasidus is. Says the Rayatz, follow with me, team. Isa b'Zohar, it says in the Zohar, Tlas ksharim miskashroim dabada Yisrael oiraisa b'kudsha brichu. The Zohar says that there are three things that are intertwined, that are linked. Yisrael, the Jewish people, Oiraisa, the Torah, and Kudsha Brichu, the Almighty. V'kulo dargin al dargin sosim v'galia. And these links have various levels to it, hidden levels and revealed levels. And Shloisha Ela, Kudsha Brichu, Oiraisa v'Yisrael, and these three elements that are intertwined, Yesh Bahem Galia v'Sosim. They also have a revealed element and a hidden element. What's the revealed element and the hidden element of Torah? Rayatz explains. Hagalia de Torah, the revealed element of Torah is mitzvahs, ve'eloikus, it's doing the mitzvahs, godliness, mavur b'shas, upoiskim v'rishonim v'achroinim. That you'll find in the Talmud, the halachic decisions from the medieval period, from the modern period. That's the revealed element of Torah. The revealed element of Torah is that in a couple of hours, we're going to bring in Shabbos, we're going to start keeping Shabbos. The hasosim de Torah. What's the hidden element of Torah? Mitzvahs ve'eloikus mevua b'midrashim, Zohar HaKadosh, b'sifrei HaKabbalah, Chakira, b'sifrei Musa. There is an element that's hidden that can be found in the Midrashic works, in the Zohar, in Kabbalah, in Musa. We still haven't explained what Hasidus is. Chosaf Havaya es Zroya Kodshoy Vayar Lonu al Yedei Moirenu Habal Shem Tov Talmidov Hakdoshim Kvoid Kedushas Kvoid Kedushas Avoiseinu Rabboiseinu Hakdoshim. The Almighty revealed through his students, through the Baal Shem Tov and all the Baal Shem Tov students. What did he reveal? He revealed Es Toiras HaChasidus, He revealed the Hasidic Torah. Hamachaberes hasosim v'hagalya. I think that's a key phrase here. Highlight it with me, team, in your own versions. Here we are. What's the idea of Hasidus? Says Rayatz, Hasidus is aimed to link that hidden Torah together with the revealed Torah. Bevi'urim shoinim, with different explanations. Uvamida yedua megala hatoich va'pnimius, the Torah o mitzvahs, moireres regesh eloiki b'leiv Yisrael hachai. Through various explanations, Hasidus attempts to reveal the inner essence of Torah and mitzvahs, and thereby awakening, arousing the emotion, igniting our souls with divine excitement. So Hasidus, at least according to the Rayatz, is that link between the hidden Torah and the revealed Torah. Uviyichud Hasidus Chabad, in particular Chabad Hasidus, hi chakira eloikis hapoisachas sharei heicholei hachochma ovina. Hasidus Chabad is slightly different on the horizon of Hasidus, because Hasidus Chabad, as you know, Roshei Tevis, stands for Chochma Bina Das, the intellectual faculties. And therefore Chabad aims at opening the intellectual gates. That a person should recognize God through the intellect. And Hasidus Chabad tries to show a path such that every single person, lefum shiura delay, according to his own capacity, yochol lageshes el hakodesh la'avodes havaya b'moichei. Each person according to their own level can go try to approach the holiness to get to God and serve God through moichei, his mind, v'liboy, and his heart. Torah's Hasidus Chabad. So at this point, you're thinking to yourself, wow, Chabad, that's really deep. Chabad is an intellectual pursuit. Now, some of us might be thinking, I'm familiar with my local Chabad rabbi. Torah's Hasidus Chabad, says the Rayatz, Im heyoisa chakira eloikis, even though Chabad is a divine intellectual investigation, iyun, inquiry, ba'omek nifla, with tremendous depth. Chabad is so deep, says the Rayatz. Hine b'chol zeh, nevertheless, meva'eres kol haskola iyunis b'vi'ur rochav. Chabad is able to explain all these intellectual ideas with broad explanations, bedugmais with examples, umasholim kroivei ha'askola, with parables that make things accessible. Umazberes ba'ayin yofa, and Chabad is able to explain ba'ayin yofa, with a good eye, ad asher yeh muvan u'muskal gam lektanei ha'asoga, until it's understandable even by those who are unable to attain lofty levels. I don't think in today's class we don't need to decide, we don't need to assess this partisan presentation of what Chabad Hasidus is. We're not here today to judge whether what he presents to us here is accurate and convincing. That's not why we've gathered today. Clearly, this is a text that is a formative text trying to present a certain narrative as to what is Chabad Hasidus. And the Rayatz is trying to suggest that Chabad Hasidus has two elements. One element is the depth, the philosophical depth, the theological depth. And on the other hand, Chabad thought, I'm not talking about a l'chaim, I'm talking about Chabad thought is accessible, has ways of presenting these lofty ideas through examples and through ideas, through parables. In section base, let's move to section base. In section base, the Rayatz then says, well, what's exactly the role of the Baal Shem Tov? What did the Baal Shem Tov do to present, to form this idea? Moireinu HaBaal Shem Tov Posach Tzinor HaYacholes B'Avodas Hashem Yisparach. The Baal Shem Tov opened a path, a channel for understanding, for ability in service of God. B'Hoira V'Hadracha, by giving instruction and guidance, Asher Kol Echad V'Echad MiYisrael, such that every person can serve God Ba'ahava U'V'Yira. Look at this. Even people who are simple, through the simplicity of their work, by saying Tehillim, even when they don't understand what they're saying, and through just simple love of Hashem and love of Jews, miskarvim heima, they come close, biskarvus pnimi, with an inner closeness to God. Like the well-known story, and that's our introduction to our tale. So what the Rayatz did is he said, Chabad is lofty but accessible, and now I'm going to show it to you. So he uses the story to demonstrate how Chabad can express deep ideas with stories. And he tells this Maaseh Yadua, this well-known story. Let me point out that so far I have not found this story in being rendered in this way by anybody before the Rayatz. So when he says Maaseh Yadua, it is also an element of forming the narrative. You know what it's like, friends? If the rabbi in the shul gets up and says, there's a famous Rashi, then you better know that Rashi. It's famous. Doesn't make a difference if it wasn't famous before that. Now it's got to be famous. So when he says K'maaseh Yadua, he's turning the story into a famous story. Even though, as I said, I haven't found this version anywhere previously. And the truth is, it will become famous. And the reason it becomes famous is because Lubavitch will reprint this treatise and take the story, as I mentioned, and lift it and publish it elsewhere. For instance, in this volume, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with, Rab Zevin's Sipurei Hasidim. Rab Zevin was a Chabad Chassid, and he publishes various collections of Hasidic stories. Tremendous Talmud Chacham, Rab Zevin. And in this work, the volume on Moadim, on festivals, our story appears. Without the beginning of the philosophical treatise, just the story itself. So let's go and have a look at the story. Any questions or comments to this point?
I'm not quite clear as to the relationship between Chabad and the Besht. The Besht, there seems to be much more of an emphasis, at least in the writing here, that what is being involved here is something that is very simple, not the Chakira, whereas Chabad is an attempt to tie the Chakira together with the emotion. So where is exactly that relationship?
Reuven, you're asking a very good question that I think is beyond the scope of our discussion today. Suffice it to say for today that we would have to divide your question into two. Are you asking what the Rayatz's narrative is, or are you asking what an objective person would say. If you're asking what the Rayatz is saying, then the Rayatz is arguing that he, as the bearer of Chabad legacy, is carrying the tradition of the Baal Shem Tov. An outsider might look around and say, you know what, the Baal Shem Tov is a little bit different than you. And Rayatz, you happen to be a great publisher and put out works at breakneck speed almost, and certainly your successor published tremendous works. The Baal Shem Tov didn't publish anything. So some of us, looking from the outside, we would note the differences. The narrative that the Rayatz is projecting is, I am continuing the tradition of the Baal Shem Tov. Was there any other comments before we continue? Let's now go to Sarah Jo. I see you're priming for a comment.
Where am I? I'm unmuted. Okay.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
There's a one more seif that you read that I think you didn't read from the Rayatz. אמנם יתרון לתורת החסידות בזה, אשר מעוררת גם רגשי הלב להתפעל באותה מידה שבלב המחויבת מידיעתה. That you get that Chabad and that חסידות מעוררת גם רגשי הלב להתפעל. He's putting an emphasis on the emotional and the experiential side as much as the intellectual chakira, and that's very important here.
I think that's a great point. Thank you for noting that, and I've highlighted it on your screens, the line that I missed when we were reading it. I think that's a great point. I think if we were discussing more about what Chabad really is and how it sees itself, we would go into this line a little bit more and see this element of how are we trying to get the heart and the mind, and we would ask ourselves, does mainstream Hasidus do the same thing? Are they interested in both of these elements to the same extent? And I think that we could have that discussion, and I do agree with you that that's an important line, but at this point we're going to go to the story. So thank you, Sarah Jo, for highlighting that. Like the well-known story, there was a case that happened in the times of the Baal Shem Tov, Asher haya kitrug shel kliya, Rachmana litzlan. There was a prosecution of annihilation, Rachmana litzlan. Heaven save us, may the merciful one save us from such things, al achas hakilas, from one against one of the communities. Ukeshera Moirenu Abal Shem Tov es kovid hamatzav hirba betfilo v'sachanunim b'Rosh Hashanah v'Yom HaKippurim. When the Baal Shem Tov, our master, the Baal Shem Tov, saw how dire the situation was, he davened a lot and he offered a lot of supplications on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Vayhi ba'is tfilas nila. We're at the end of the process. It's nila time. Hikiru atalmidim akdoshim. The holy students realized, but tfilas moirenu Baal Shem Tov, they saw the way the Baal Shem Tov was davening, and they saw Hashem matzavay shel hakitrog rachmana litzlan, the situation of the prosecution. Heaven save us. Hu retzini moed is extremely dire, very serious. How did they know? They weren't privy to what was going on in heaven. They saw the Baal Shem Tov's davening. Vayis'amtzu gam heim. And they too exerted themselves in davening, in supplications, with weeping from the depths of their heart. For if I was to offer this story to you, you would say, "What? This is a totally different story. What happened to our boy?" You can see that the Rayatz has got a totally different focus. He's got his camera somewhere else. And you'll see how different his camera lens is. When the other people who were in the shul, when they saw, which other people? Be'ezras Yisrael, or, look at that, look at the next word. Or Be'ezras Noshim. in the men's section and in the women's section. I don't remember there being a women's section. So it's lovely that here we are in the women's Beit Midrash, and we've found the women's section in the Baal Shem Tov's Beis Medrash. So when the other people, the men and the women who were davening together with the Baal Shem Tov, when they saw that the Baal Shem Tov and his holy students, that they are exerting themselves in prayer, and when they heard the crying out, and then they too, nishbar levavam bekirbam vayivku gam hema betfilasam. They too, their hearts were broken inside them, and they too were crying. So what the Rayatz has done over here is he's created 3 levels in the Beit Midrash, in the Beit Knesset. We've got the Baal Shem Tov, who's privy to what's going on in heaven. We have the Baal Shem Tov students that they recognize and they get a sense that something's amiss, and therefore they exert themselves. And then you've got all the men and the women in the Beis Medrash who just pick up on the vibe, and they too also begin their tefillah. Kisharo asher kvar higia zman tfilas arvis. What's the time now? Kvar higia zman tfilas arvis. What does that mean? Where are we? We're after Yom Kippur already. Yom Kippur's finished. Thank you, Johnny, with the arm movement. We're beyond Yom Kippur. Umayreina Baal Shem Tov v'talmidei v'akdoshim oidom oimdim al omdom. They are still standing there. Mischazkim u'misamtim betfilosam. They are still davening. Hevinu kulam ki hamatzav noirahu. Everybody understood, well, this situation is really dire. Vayivku ha'anoshim. Oh, look at this. Look who else is crying. Vayivku ha'anoshim v'hanoshim me'oimek nekudas levavam bevechiyos atzumois vayehi rash gadol. So far, whose hearts have we seen? Whose hearts? Remember, Rachmana Libavai. Whose hearts have come to the game so far? I've got No'omek Nekudas Levavam of the men and the women, and also of the students. Me'umka Deliba. Me'umka Deliba and Me'omek Nekudas Levavam. So we've got people bringing their hearts to the game. At this point, tension builds up. It's after Yom Kippur, but we're still davening. Everybody's crying. The tension in the Beit Knesset, in the Beis Medrash of the Baal Shem Tov is palpable. And at that moment, the Rayatz takes a step back and says, Zeh Ezer Shonim, changes the tone. Zeh Ezer Shonim, a number of years. Asher Bochur Ivri Ben Kfar Roya Tzoinu Vakar. It's already been a number of years that a young village boy, we've already had a number of years that there's this one boy who comes to shul, and since he's a total ignoramus, he would stand there and look at the chazan without saying any words. So this is no longer a boy who's coming to the shul for the first time, who's bar mitzvah. How old is this kid? How old do you think? I see, right, a teenager, a young man. This isn't some little young adult. A young adult.
He could be
he's a regular. A young adult, says Yisrael. He's a regular. Not only that, he even has a place in the shul. Everybody knows where he's going to stand. Everybody knows it because he's going to stand. Where's he going to stand? Right at the front. He's going to stand at the front, and he's going to stand there, and he's going to just be looking at the chazan the entire Yom Kippur. He stands there watching the face of the chazan. People are used to him already. We all know, right? There's some we have in our shuls people who are a little bit strange. We have to make space for them as well. And then in the Beis Medrash of the Baal Shem Tov, there is this boy who comes every year. Shtickle, nebuch. Let him stand there. He doesn't hurt anybody. He stands there. The chazan's already used to him. The first year, the chazan felt like, what's he looking at me the whole time? By now, the Chazan barely even notices him. Kekafri, as a village boy, hayorogel b'kol ha-behemus, ha-izi, makvosim, ha-tziporim, ha-oifus. As a village boy, he was used to animal sounds. V'achoshuv benehem, and the most important sound for him was kol ha-tarnogol b'kriosoi, was the crowing of a rooster. Uvir oisoi hisragshu sagdoila. And when he saw the tremendous excitement, Asher B'Beis HaKnesses, Uveshamay HaBachias Be'ezras Yisrael, and again we have here, Uve'ezras Nashim, when the great crying in the men's section and the women's section. So he too, Nishbar Levavai Bekirbai, his heart also was broken inside of him. And what does he do? He stands up there right at the front of the shul, Vayikra B'Kol Gadol, and he cries out in a tremendous voice, Kukurikuhan, translated as Cock-a-doodle-doo, Got Tov Rachmanas. May God have mercy. Now look at the storyteller here. End of chapter. You're left. Frozen. Everybody, what? Everybody wants to know what's going on. There's a pause. Great literary tool. When they heard in the shul the crying out of a rooster, the people in the men's section were shocked. And the women in the women's section, they were scared. What's an animal doing here? They didn't know who was crowing like a rooster. But then when they heard God Tov Rachmanas, God have mercy, they realized it's that strange village boy who stands at the front. He's the one who made that noise. A number of those people who were davening, that they were standing right there at the front of the shul. They got angry with him. What are you talking in the middle of davening? They wanted to kick him out. And he said to them, I'm also a Jew. And your God is also my God. Where's that line from? Ruth, says Aviva. It's from the Megillah, from Megillat Ruth. It's a play. You've got it on the sheet at the end, at the bottom of the page. It's a play on the words from Megillat Ruth. What? Ruth? What's that got to do with the story? How did she how does she come join the narrative suddenly? And also, no one accused the young boy of not being Jewish. That's Ruth's declaration of faith. When Ruth says, your people are my people, your God's my God, that's the moment of conversion. So I'm not sure really what's going on over here, but I would like to suggest, and maybe you guys have a different suggestion, but I want to suggest that I think that bringing in this statement serves the Rayats to show what a misfit the boy is. Because he's quoting something that's not the right quote. It's a little bit of that Fiddler on the Roof moment when he says, right, as Moses said, no, that wasn't Moses, right? It's like quoting the wrong thing at the wrong time because he just has like little bits. And I think that shows us this boy he's really a misfit. I think what the Rayatz wants to do, if you remember back to our first class, the boy who plays the musical flute, how many of us fell in love with that boy? How many of us wanted to be that boy who through their music is able to express the innermost feelings? And we said that's the danger of the first version. If you fall in love with that boy, then you bring your saxophone to school on Yom Kippur morning, to shul. So it's a dangerous story. The Rayat says, I've got to create a character over here that no one's going to fall in love with. And I want to reckon that even those of you who fell in love with the boy of the first story, this boy, never. You don't fall in love with him. He's a misfit. He quotes the wrong things. He looks strange. He makes funny noises. You don't want to be the boy. And I think that's what the Rayat succeeds in doing over here. And at that moment, they want to, let's go back to our story, they want to throw him out of the base medrash. Hashamash Hazoken, Reb Yosef Yuzpa, Hirgias Rucham, the old beetle, calmed them down. And he said to the village boy, you can stay where you are. And here again, we have a great literary device that the Rayatz is using. Reb Yosef Yuzpa is a historical character. He is mentioned. He wasn't an old beetle. He was actually a very wealthy person. But he's mentioned in Shivchei HaBesht, the earliest collection of Hasidic stories of the Baal Shem Tov. And there, he's mentioned, but without very many details. By bringing him into the story, I'm furnishing a facade of historicity. Oh yes, there really was a person like that. And so therefore you get the sense, this is part of that narrative. And by putting him in here, it adds something to the story. After a few moments, after a few moments of the event, Nishma Koiloi Shomarenu Abal Shem Tov Achar V'Talmidim HaKdoshim Hamamarim L'Sayim Tfilas HaShmoneh Esrei B'Ne'ilah. Now we understand I'm just trying to understand what they were doing until then. Right? They haven't even got through Shmoneh Esrei. Of course, this is a colloquial term because we don't actually say 18 benedictions. There's not 18 brachas at Ne'ilah, but it's referring to the Shtila Shmoneh Esrei. Upnei Kodesh HaBaal Shem Tov Naharu Migil. And the holy countenance of the Baal Shem Tov was aglow from joy. B'ne'ima miyuchada hischil marenu HaBaal Shem Tov chazar sashatz b'tfilas Ne'ilah. Chevra, you realize what time we are? We are way after the end of the fast. And now he starts chazar sashatz, u'v'yisoras miyuchada, and with a special awakening and enthusiasm. Amar Psukei Hayichud Shema Yisrael Baruch Shem Hashem Elokim. You know the verses. V'yashiru Meirenu HaBaal Shem Tov Shirei Simcha. That's a strange line. And the Baal Shem Tov sung songs of joy. If we have a chance, we'll come back to it. If you notice it, just to understand why it's even strange. Nowhere in your machzah does it say to sing songs of joy at that moment. I know there are many communities that now do it. Lashon haba, maybe. But songs of joy, come back to that. Kesheves Meirenu HaBaal Shem Tov v'Talmidav HaKdoshim b'Sudas Motzei Yom Kippur. When the Baal Shem Tov sits with his holy students at Sudas for the Suda to break the fast, Hoyel l'sapel kol pirtei inyonei hakitrug rachmana litzlan shahaya lo yoleinu. The Baal Shem Tov said, I'll tell you what happened. Heaven save us, shouldn't be on us. What was that prosecution against the community of Israel? Notice, where's the young man? He's not privy to this moment. He never knows about what the outcome of his crowing is. The Baal Shem Tov only tells his students. And says the Baal Shem Tov, says the Rayatz about the Baal Shem Tov, when the Baal Shem Tov was exerting himself to awaken divine mercies for the community, Then what happened? Pogash Rachmana Litzlan Kitru Godel Olav. He went up to heaven and he starts defending and wait a second. Before we listen to your defense, let's move you over to the side of the accused. What was he accused of? The Baal Shem Tov al Asher Mishtadel Lohoishiv Bnei Yisrael Bakfarim Uba Parshas Drachim. The Baal Shem Tov was sending people to various villages and to crossroads. Asher Yecholim Heim Lilmoid Chas V'Sholem Mishchenehem. They might learn heaven forfend from their neighbors. So what began as a prosecution against a certain community, so one said, we'll put that aside. Let's deal with you first, Mr. Baal Shem Tov. And what are we going to do? What are we going to say to you? You've been sending people to various corners, to Kfarim, to various villages. And when they're away from a Jewish community, what's their Torah, what's their Jewish life going to look like? And when they began to check what was the situation, how they were actually acting, these village people. Ra'isi, I saw something strange about that. Ra'isi, I saw Asher Matzav Hu Kosher B'Ma'od. I saw that the situation was very, very harsh. V'hayisi, and I was b'chira. I was in a very bad state. I am really going down here, said them. Suddenly, Nishma b'moraim, it was heard in the heavens. Kol kriyasi shel ben hakfar hatam. Suddenly in the heavens they heard the crying of ben hakfar hatam. This pure village boy, Kuku Rikuhan, God Habrachmanis. Asher kriyat mima zoi, this pure cry, garma kairas ruach lamala, caused joy, satisfaction, ad rum hamalois, until the loftiest level, uvitlu hakitrugim me'al ha'eda, and that cry cancelled all the prosecutions against the community, umeolai, and the prosecutions against me. Psh, what a story, huh? Is it the same story? So different. Same kernel. But what has the Rayat's done? First of all, he's changed the boy. The boy is no way a hero. He's a young man. He's a little bit strange, Nebuch. You don't fall in love with the boy. And the antinomianism, no antinomianism in this story. Where's their antinomianism? No one even thinks about bringing their saxophone to the shul. And no kid, no teenager is going to get up in the middle of shul and be proud of making animal noises. Maybe on Purim. That happens in my shul in Surah Dasa. But that's it. Not a regular on Yom Kippur. So it's a totally different story. But I think it's even more different than we realize at first. And before I break it down for you, does anyone have any comments or questions why I'm saying it's even more different than the first image that I just painted?
This Kitrug and the Baal Shem Tov may be representative of the Kitrug and the Hasidus?
I'm going to go in that direction, Reuven, but I'm going to go even more specific. Hold off on that comment and you'll be glad you said it in a moment. Anyone else?
Yeah. Could you learn out from here that a short tefillah and sincerity why do you need to pray so long and so much? You could shorten it and have it sincere.
Manny, I'm going to defer to your local community rabbi. I do not want to get into trouble. I don't know what, and start giving you suggestions. And so I'm going to avoid that question. I'd be in a lot more trouble if Scott asked me that question. But so far, Manny, you don't come to my shul in Surah Hadassah, so I can avoid it. Anybody else? Any other comments or questions before I take it a step further?
Levi, could you repeat Manny's question? Could you repeat the question? It was muffled. Marsha and I didn't hear it.
You can discuss that with Manny offline, and we're going to take it a step further. Any other comments about the story? Aviva, you want to say something? No? Okay. Yes, Marsha.
I mean, I think the focus has really changed completely in terms of the hero of the story. And it's not even a hero, but it's the Besht trying to explain the current policies of Chabad.
Wait a second, Marsha. Hold off for a second. Marsha said, I'm going to get to your second, you said two things. The second comment I'm going to get to. Your first comment is you said the hero of the story is clearly not the boy. And I agree with that totally. You can't mess up with this story. You can't make that mistake. And the story, the hero of this version is, there's no question that the hero of this version must be the Baal Shem Tov. Okay? There's no room for another approach there. Or maybe there is. And that's what I'd like to do with you in these last few minutes together. There are three elements of this story that are very strange or innovative. The first one we noticed right at the beginning, women's section. And though I'm sure our sponsors are very glad that there's a women's section in the Beis Medrash of the Baal Shem Tov, no previous version had that women's section. Not only that, we have no evidence that there actually was a women's section. And certainly in the construction that exists today in Mezhibush, which is the reconstructed Beis Medrash of the Baal Shem Tov, based on evidence from the early 20th century, there's no women's section. Where did the Rayatz get his women's section from? My friends, we all know that there is no Hasidic group that has made room for women and recognized women as part of the mission to the same extent that Lubavitch has. And when a shliach goes out, and he goes out together with his wife, and they're both part of the mission, very seldom is it only one of them. And the same way the Lubavitch has an annual gathering of Kinus HaShluchim, they also have an annual gathering of Kinus HaShluchos, of the women, the emissaries.
That hasn't been going on as long, Levi.
I know, but they have it.
Okay.
And no other Hasidic group has that. Neshei Chabad, organizations, no other Hasidic group has made and recognized the role of women as part of the Hasidic mission. And therefore, and you already see it in this early statement of the Rayatz.
I thought it was Schneesen, and now I see it's the Rayat.
That's Yafeh Ma'od, Sarah Jo. I'm glad you came today. You can see it's true that the Ramash, his son-in-law and successor, will expand the project. But the seeds are already here with the Rayatz. Second strange thing in the story is those Shirei Simcha. The truth is that Lubavitch, at the end of Yom Kippur, they have a particular song. It's worth a whole shir in itself. The Napoleon's March. It's a victory march that they end Yom Kippur with. And the third thing is that there's no evidence that the Baal Shem Tov sent anybody anywhere. The Baal Shem Tov, according to what we know, had a small group of dedicated, like-minded, Kabbalistically inclined cohort. Who is the one who begins sending people to far-off places? And Sarah Jo may have thought before today.
Rayat,
Sarah
Jews
Jo,
going there.
Sarah Joe may have thought before today that it was the Ramash, the son-in-law, but the one who began that mission was already the Rayatz. Now let's go back to the story just for a minute, and with this we'll conclude for today. Bringing the story up again, and if you have a look, that last paragraph, there's something really strange in the way the storyteller goes. The story is told about the Baal Shem Tov, third person, the entire story. And in the last paragraph, suddenly the story goes into first person. Ra'isi, I saw, I was in a bad state. And at the end, the critique, the prosecution was lifted from on me, me'alai. He goes into first person. You all see that? And you see that? Lembergers, you see that? Unbelievable. My friends, this story is not a story about the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov is not the hero of the story. Do you want to know who the hero of the story is?
Yeah.
The hero of the story is the Rayatz himself. It's the Rayatz who's telling his own personal narrative. I'm in a bad situation. I'm sending people to who knows where. That's what I'm going to do. In 1938, he hadn't done that yet, but that was his vision already. I'm going to send people. And in 1949, he sends Rabbi Zalman Posner to Nashville, Tennessee. Nashville, Tennessee, Vic in Nashville, Tennessee. Before that, he sends one of my teachers, Rabbi Groner, to Australia. And he's worried. What's going to happen? You send a Yid, a Hasidic Yid, to Nashville, Tennessee, to Australia, to Morocco. You send people to ridiculous places. Maybe they're going to learn. No. No, they're going there for the Jews, for the simple Jews. In 1959, Rabbi Zalman Posner of Nashville, Tennessee, will be the person who translates this treatise into English. And I can only imagine how he felt as he translated this work. And I wonder whether he realized that this story was not really about the Baal Shem Tov. This story is really about the Rayatz and about the Lubavitch mission to spread Torah to all corners of the world and to reach out to Jews wherever they are. The hero of this version is not that strange Nebuch boy. It's not even the Baal Shem Tov. It's the Rayatz. We'll leave it there for today.
תודה רבה.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Kaya.
Shabbat shalom.